So today I'm so thrilled to introduce Lindsay Martin Ellis. Welcome, Lindsay.
Hello, hello. So happy to be here.
So great to have you. Lindsay Martin Ellis is an embodied intuitive, transformational mentor and spiritual teacher for those on the devotional path. She is also a writer, a speaker, a podcast hostess, human design and gene keys facilitator, and emissary of the divine feminine. This former professional engineer traded in her accolades and to-do list for the felt experience of what it means to embrace our soul journey in the human form. When Lindsay is not serving humanity, you can find her playing in nature with her rescue pup Luna, traveling the world with her hubby Chad, and dancing her prayers to George Michael's Freedom on the regular. Ooh, love that song. Lindsay is a true oracle, here to leave grounded universal messages for the collective's evolution, and you can receive her free teachings and transmissions on all major social media platforms at Lindsay Martin Ellis, and her podcast, Soulshine Radio, and her website, lindsaymartinellis.com. Welcome, Lindsay.
I got teary-eyed when you read that. It's been a while since I've had it reflected back to me. So I'm like, I guess that means I'm doing something right.
You are doing something right. It's resonating in your soul. It's beautiful. Yeah, there's been a lot of tears during this retreat, I have to say. Sometimes mine and sometimes the collective with the two of us. I think there's just so much emotion and so much shifting right now that people are feeling. It's really, and it's not tears of sadness. It's just like beautiful tears of elevation, feeling really good about where we're at.
Yeah, I feel that too.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So Lindsay, I'd love to jump in with you and ask you to share with us a bit about your background, your life experience, and where transformation has really played a part in your growth and, bringing you to where you are today. So yeah, please share.
Oh my gosh, where do I even start? Well, it's funny. Last year, I published my first book, and through the writing process, I discovered that every decade of my life, there was some massive transformational initiation that absolutely allowed me to course correct and evolve and grow and transform. And so I think I'll start with out of the womb. I'll keep it short and sweet. But I almost drowned when I was 2 years old, and I didn't realize, because I don't remember it consciously, that there was so much terror that lived inside my body from that experience, so much abandonment, actually abandonment of self, above abandonment of my parents. And I never felt like there was any judgment or anything that I felt, but I started to notice as I really embarked on this evolutionary path and grounded into this consciousness journey, how much of that lived inside of my body. So that was age 2. And then I lost my best friend when I was in college, and I was there. I was with her, and I left in one car and she left in another, and she transitioned. And really, I grew up Catholic, and I didn't really ever feel I knew that there was something more, but I just didn't really feel like I didn't understand any sort of religious dogma. I was like, this doesn't make sense to me. And when she died, I started, honestly, from a foundational level of just learning how to grieve and learning how to process my emotions. And I read Many Lives, Many Masters, and I just started following Buddhist principles, and I just kind of started picking all of these different nuggets that helped me on my healing journey. And then, of course, college happened, right? I went through my grieving process, and I kind of lost touch with my spiritual nature, became an environmental engineer, went to college and graduated cum laude. And then I started to have these debilitating hormonal issues, to the point where I was told I wouldn't be able to conceive a child at the time, just adrenal fatigue, cortisol spiking left and right. On the outside, I looked like I was thriving. I was climbing the corporate ladder in this male-dominated industry, and my body was literally screaming at me. I got engaged to my now husband at 30 years old. And that's when I really started to look at my life, and I started to look at how I was living my life and how out of alignment I felt in so many ways. And that was the moment that I reclaimed autonomy over my body, over my life, completely healed myself from the inside out. 6 months. In 6 months, after over a decade of being on medications, just started to listen to my inner compass, got really in touch with my hormones, with my body temple. And I thought I was just healing physically. And eventually I started to recognize how much emotional healing began to come up, right? Like the drowning experience when I was 2, and all of those things that happened with even the parts of me that I didn't heal, with my best friend transitioning, and why her and why not me, and where do we go when we die, and what happens on the other side, and all of these questions started to surface. And I'm now 36. So really from about 30 to 30 till now and beyond, I've been moving from like, oh, wow, it's like the body, mind, spirit connection, and how all of it is integrated, and how every painful experience in our life is really leads to this rapturous experience if we allow it and allow ourselves to surrender into the teachings that are presenting itself with that experience. And so that's how I move through life now. I left corporate about 4 years ago, and now you obviously know what I do. And it's my honor to help other women just walk the beauty way and to move through life from this place of truly surrendering to what's presented to us. So I'll hand it back over to you.
Thank you. Wow, that's so much to have gone through. And I really feel for your losing of your best friend. I know how horrible that is. I also lost, she didn't pass away. I lost a best friend who ended up with a brain tumor, and it changed her personality totally. And I was pregnant at the time, and my dad also died when I was pregnant. And so that really, that huge experience of loss at that time really put me down into a funk. And this is how we survive through these things, is we repress them, right? We stuff them into the body as if it's a bag that we can just shove in the corner. And I'm sure there's people who can relate, because life can be so traumatic in so many ways. But you also talked about the kind of healing, the rapture of healing, the beauty of healing, and the potential that comes through. I remember when my mom passed away, somebody telling me that, imagine you're like a diamond, and the more facets of the diamond that are cut off, the more pieces of the diamond that are taken away, the brighter you shine. So thank you for sharing your process, and how you were able to come through this. And really, 2 years old, that's so young. We don't even really have access to those memories. So being able to go back to that time, that's really some feat that you were able to do that. But I guess the fact that you were able to pinpoint that and then really work with it is the magic of your healing. So tell us a little bit more. There's 2 things. One is, I know there's women listening to us here who are probably in the corporate world, who are just like waiting on the edge of their seat, knowing it's time for me to leave. Could you give some advice for someone who's thinking of transitioning out of a job, a job job, into maybe a more spiritual direction, and a definitely healed direction? And then I have some other questions too.
Yeah, I love this. Yeah. And, for me, and I didn't share this part of the story, but when I was an environmental engineer, so I very much had this like conscious awareness of like environmental toxins. And I was always just health conscious and environmentally aware since I was a very young child, but I never like really applied it fully to my life, right? It's like what we're modeled and what we see and what we're taught and what people tell us and doctors tell us and what the pop culture tells us. And once I started to become my own advocate, I actually found this company. The company's called Beauty Counter, and I'm still with them, non-toxic skincare and cosmetics. And all of a sudden I was using their products and they were working, and I felt like I was like really digging into the transparency of the company. And all of a sudden this business opportunity presented itself, and I really joined for the discount because I had thrown out so many products and I was really starting from scratch and starting from this new baseline. And I just remember I had like terrible cystic acne and like my confidence was non-existent. And I just remember sharing my story with people while I was in the middle of this healing journey, and it was working. So it was like the first time ever that like vulnerability and intimacy and just letting people know exactly where I was at, but being so connected to my vision, I started to see how people like were impacted by that and how effortless it became. And I believe that this company came into my life as a stepping stone for this path because I actually didn't know. So to answer your question, if this company and this opportunity didn't present itself, I don't know if I would have had the courage to walk away. I don't know if I would have considered it. I think I would have just said, this is what I went to school for, and this is what I do. And I have no idea what else I could possibly teach or do or whatever. So that's something fun to explore, is like, is there something already in your life, in your field, that maybe isn't like, I'm going to launch this thing all by myself and have no idea what I'm doing. And maybe there's an opportunity to work with someone, alongside someone, apprentice, or just kind of get your foot in the door doing something that feels more meaningful for you. So that's my first answer. And then the second is, I was like so ready to leave corporate, and my husband is so grounded, and he actually left corporate last year. He went from financial investment research to fine finish carpentry, but he really helped me like come up with a grounded plan, right? It's like the magnetism meets the electricity, right? It's like the true heart connection and intuition meets like the divine in action meets the alignment. And he helped me come up with a plan of what would feel secure, what would feel stretchy. It was like the right combination and recipe of stretchy and also security. And it was like, I think it was like 9 months. Like we had a 9-month plan, and we had a spreadsheet. He's an engineer, I'm in finance, right? And we're like, all right. And we did it. And so it was supportive because it was something to look forward to, but it allowed me to really claim it and do it, to say like, this is what I want for my life. I'm going to try it. If it doesn't work out, I can always go back. And of course, I never looked back. So I think that would be the two biggest pieces of advice, is like, there might be something already in your field that's kind of speaking to you, and to keep just saying yes, because the universe will keep presenting itself the little breadcrumbs of like, keep saying yes, keep choosing this. And then also like right? This segment is called Reality is Spirituality, right? Like it is important to stay grounded and to not be so reckless, right? And to like really, whether you're meant to take the leap now, or if you're meant to like create a pathway, and you're the only one that's going to know that if you're listening to it. So I'll hand it back over to you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think what's coming up for me is that, knowing that we're resourced, taking it slow. Things don't have to be fast all the time. That's kind of what we're evolving out of, right? This like fast, risky, quick decisions, feeling overwhelmed. As you said, having a spreadsheet, having a foundation, having a backup plan.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with if that's the choice you make and you just want to jump.
Yeah.
That and that works for a lot of people, but having it, at least having the desire there, having the vision there, having the prayers, the wishes, speaking to spirit, knowing that spirit is listening and that you are divinely guided. I fully believe that. I'm sure you do too. It's going to happen. You've put the wish out, you've put the the letter's been sent to spirit, and you're just waiting now for the receiving of the message and the clear, it's time to go. Yeah. So that's beautiful. But it's also making me think about, how do we know in our bodies that it's the right time? And as someone who works with the body,
I love this question.
Yeah. Can you share a little bit more about that? Like how to make a transition or a transformation that feels right in the body? How do we know that it's right? Like what part does the body play?
Well, intuitively, I'd love both of us to just close our eyes for a moment, and anyone tuning in, and just settling in for a moment and putting your hands anywhere on your body that feels yummy and delicious. And just asking yourself the question of, what is a moment in my life where I felt so embodied in my yes? I felt so excited. I knew that this was the decision that I get to make. I felt it in my heart, right? My belly was fluttering with butterflies. It just was like oxytocin was being released. It felt so effortless. It felt so easy. And maybe people around you didn't understand it, but you just knew. So maybe this is when you said yes to marrying your beloved. Maybe this is the first time that you saw your child's eyes after being born. Maybe this was a decision to move to a new state. Maybe it was just the first time that you met someone that was part of your fractal lineage, your soul family, and you just knew that you knew this person in previous lifetimes. Just going back to that moment, beginning to just see it. And right, our body keeps the score. Our body carries all of these emotions associated with this moment. So as you're seeing it, feel what it feels like in your body to just have that knowing. Feel how easy it feels, how connected you feel. Oh, it doesn't matter what anyone else is saying around you. You know this is true. You know this is pure. You know this is aligned. And so whenever you're questioning a decision, if it doesn't feel like this, it's probably a no. It's that simple. So just coming back into the space and opening your eyes. Now we're all in this yummy place. We get to continue on the conversation, right? So it's really that easy. If it feels icky, if there's, if there's any sort of dissonance, it's probably a no. And that's how I move through life. And I promise what starts to happen is you start to have evidence. I have this book I call my Book of Miracles. And it is literally when I have that feeling inside and I take action, I now have evidence of how the universe meets me and how it creates the momentum of the divine supporting me in every decision. And then it starts to let the mind take the back seat and be in service to the heart. And that's really all that we're doing. I feel that we're just in a reversal time of moving from the mental chatter first and allowing the mind to then be in service to the heart.
That's so beautiful. Yeah. And it's interesting. I went back to a moment where it wasn't necessarily a decision, but it was a moment where I was on stage. I'm a sound therapist and also a musician, an artist, creative being, basically. And I was on stage and I was playing my crystal bowls, singing, and I felt my soul pull out of my body and like, I mean, I was still connected, but I pulled out and I just looked at the experience and I felt like, this is so right. This is exactly what it's meant to be. This feels so good. I'm in love with this experience so much. And then it just continued on. I was in this absolute state of bliss, And so to actually allow ourselves to feel those feelings, those blissful feelings, and to have those in like your Book of Miracles written down, remember the time when you felt so good. It's just such a great way to remind ourselves that this type of feeling is possible and it could have happened at any time in our lives, like those moments.
Yeah. And what's coming through, right, is like, I'm sure there were moments that you were scared shitless to go on stage and perform in front of people, or to maybe sell your first piece of art, or to maybe open up your voice for the first time. So I love that you brought this up, right? Because there's going to be fear. Like there's going to be moments, right? Because we know something big is on the horizon. So, right, it's like, you still can feel the fear and know when it's right. Like that feeling where you've had that experience, and I do that too, where it's almost like you become the observer of your experience. You don't leave your body, but you're like, oh, wow, this is pure. This is true. This is real, right? And that overpowers the fear of being seen. That overpowers the fear of taking the risk of doing something different that maybe goes against the grain of what society tells you should do and who you should be. So just know that, like, the fear, if you're not afraid, then you're not transforming.
Yeah, that's it. It can be painful to transform. I was looking online, there's a meme which has a butterfly and a caterpillar, and they're having a glass of wine, and the caterpillar says to the butterfly, "You've changed." And the butterfly says, "Yeah,
I
we're
know.
supposed to."
Yeah.
Right? We're supposed to. And if you think about it, the butterfly actually goes from the caterpillar, it goes into the cocoon and it turns into a goopy blob. Like that's gotta hurt.
Yeah. Like literally foundationally totally disappearing from and restarting from the ground up in the chrysalis.
Exactly. And the snake, I often will call in the snake when I'm calling in the directions. And the snake as well. At one point, the snake is fully blind. And sometimes when we're going through that, it feels like we're blind. We don't really know. We can't trust our vision anymore. We have to pull all of our energy into our bodies and just go inwards and know that, we're on the right path. And just trust. There's so much of this piece of trust, I find. Speaking of which, my cat is crying at the door. I'm going to be right back.
Okay. We get to look at your beautiful art.
Here. Thank you. Yeah, that's one of my pieces.
It almost looks like a yoni.
Yeah.
I love it. Is it?
Yeah, definitely. It's I call them portals.
I love it.
I saw this vision in an ayahuasca ceremony where it was the first time that I saw this type of image. And I remember I wasn't really feeling the medicine. And my friend said to me, well, this might just be a night of deep meditation. So I was like, okay. So I sat back and I started to meditate. And I thought, if I'm just going to be meditating, I'm going to send love to all of my friends. And so I opened my heart and I imagined a friend in front of my eyes. And all of a sudden, this image of this started to appear around my friend. And I was like, whoa. And then I brought another friend up and a different image came. So this was an activation that the medicine shared with me. But really, it came from the direct experience of opening my heart and imagining myself sending love.
I love that.
So that's the image here. And I only just now made the connection of me standing in front of it here, or sitting in front of it, is very similar to what I saw in that vision. So again, it's like trusting the process and trusting it was going to be a boring night in my mind. I was like, working, I'm bored, I'm just going to meditate. And then, wow, the simplest things can be so profound.
Yeah. And it's funny because before you mentioned this, when you were talking about vision, like I have a funny relationship with vision now too, because I feel like so many times, even with our like lower octave version of vision, we limit ourselves. And right. So for you, like, right, the mind is like, oh, I'm just going to meditate. Well, I might as well like do something constructive with this. Right. And it's like, then the magic appears, right? It's like that willingness to not know and to have the blinders on so that this beautiful art and activation can emerge. And I feel like that's the difference, right? Because I'm constantly evolving my vision. I imagine you are too, as a creative, right? It's like, because when we pigeonhole ourselves, we're always changing, we're always evolving, we're always transforming. And if we get so attached to that thing, then there's this thing all the way over here that we may be missing, and that we may be saying no to, and that we may be resisting. And so I just like to be surprised now. I'm always open to being surprised, delighted.
Yeah, calling in the mystery, calling in the magic, calling in our dreams, to show us something really special. I'm doing the Dr. Joe Dispenza, some of his meditations, and he says at one point in this one meditation about asking the universe or asking your guides to show you themselves in a way that is so magnificent or so out there that you can't but know that that's your soul guide telling you something. And since doing that, I've had some really powerful experiences, like just synchronicities of things showing up.
Totally.
So yeah, so asking for us to be shown in those moments when you don't necessarily expect a miracle or expect anything maybe to happen, all of a sudden this, beautiful thing will show up for you.
Yeah, claiming it. But I tell my clients, like, you get to just claim it and ask for it and say it. So many oftentimes we don't even do that, right? It's like, you get to be clear.
Yeah, exactly. It's up to you, actually. Nobody else is going to do it for us, and it's up to us to make these declarations to the universe. Yeah, that's so beautiful.
Mine lately is I'm claiming to play a bigger game. I don't know, like, it's just like, I don't know what that means, but it's like, I'm here to play a bigger game. And then I'm like rattling in my, like, I don't know what this means, but right, I just feel, right, I just know that there's more. So every single day it's like, all right, I'm committed to that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. How big can we get? How when we feel that trust in ourselves, when we have that resource, it's almost like we can just go bigger and bigger and trust that the foundation is there. Yeah. I love it. So tell me a little bit about the emotions. We're thinking a little bit about that. Like, how does our emotional foundation support us in our transformation as well?
Well, I believe that us feeling to the depths of our being is directly connected to everything that we desire in this world and beyond. And our emotions, I believe, are attached to our soul journey, right? It's like we remember the experiences that we felt and lived in previous incarnations. And so when we're numbing and when we're stuffing things down and when we're avoiding to not feel, we're actually completely cutting off access with our soul, with spirit, with source, and our ability to actually get the clues and the clarity on how to move forward. So it's right. It's like, if you want the clarity, if you're confused, if you don't know where to go next, it's directly connected to, like, where am I avoiding feeling this wound that's creating density in the body, that's blocking me for more capacity inside of my being to serve, right? It's like, people ask, I'm sure you all the time, and they ask me all the time, like, how do you have all this energy and how are you able to do this? And it's like, because I've literally had so many baths crying in the bathtub, not knowing why. But now I just don't attach to my emotions anymore in the same way. Like, I feel them, I acknowledge them, I accept them, I allow them to move through. I don't create a big story about it. Sometimes I know why, sometimes I don't know why, but I give myself the space to feel through breaths, through sound, through movement, through whatever it is. And then I start to notice, like, there's this like softening that begins to happen, like these little tiny softenings. And that's what I believe awakening is. It's like these little tiny softenings as we meet the pain. And so the difference is that pain is temporary and suffering is perpetual. And so the suffering is created from the avoidance of the pain. And right, like right at that access point at our heart, right, we have our higher self and our human self. And at that access point is where our emotions reside. And so it's just a matter of, again, even if this might be something that may be scary for some of you, even just to start with like, I'm willing to just listen. I'm willing to just open myself up to what this wound is teaching me. I'm willing just to slowly flip the dimmer switch in this space of allowing myself to feel and just being patient with yourself and seeing what happens. So this may be easy for some of you, it may be challenging, but just to say like, okay, I'm afraid. I don't know what this is going to bring up. This feels painful. This feels scary, but I'm willing to try. And again, asking your divine support team to help you in titrating, starting to feel those emotions. So yeah. And then it becomes more fun. Like, I'm not afraid of pain anymore. I'm not afraid of death anymore. Right. I trust.
There's so much freedom in that.
Right.
Yeah. And colors become brighter.
Yes.
The life becomes more interesting.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
The simplest things can become, the most magnificent.
The magic in the mundane.
Magic in the mundane. Yeah. I'm a big fan of timers. So I've said that to some of my clients, like allow yourself every day, 5, 10, 15 minutes, put your timer on, get your Kleenex nearby, and just see if you can go into the feeling, see if you can go into the emotion and just allow it. Because for me, and this is what I've heard from some people, there's a fear of losing complete control. And I think, for women, especially in our history of being told that we're hysterical and that we're, women being put into, asylums and that sort of thing, there's definitely a deep-seated fear of losing control. But there's also we're blocking off our femininity as well when we're not controlling everything and we're just being and receiving in that receiving place. That's where so much of our power is. So allowing us to feel, allowing us to sit back and receive and feel and be in the moment and not having to control or force or protect or be in that safety mode all the time. So when you're feeling safe, when you're in your room, let's say in a safe place, like a bed or your comfy chair, giving yourself a timer and then doing what you said, titrating, giving yourself that moment to just feel.
Yeah. And I use music a lot because sometimes it is hard to access. And I noticed that the frequencies and resonances, right? It's like, if you're just like, I love the timer, it's the same thing, right? Like giving yourself that time and space and the comfort and the safety of your own environment to allow yourself to access what is asking to be accessed, right? I call it wound wisdom. There's a reason why it's coming up and asking for it to be looked at and felt. And there's a zillion different ways, right? It could be getting out in nature. Like there could be just certain things that bring up certain emotions for you. And so what's best for you, right? There's so many ways to get there. But I do love what you said, if you don't mind me touching on like losing control, right? Because I've kind of like I've shifted a lot of words lately, just like because every words carry resonances and they're varies for each of us. Like for me, I don't use the word boundary anymore because it was like coming from a wound. I use the word discernment, but for some people, they may be in clear, luminous, loving boundaries and it may work for them. But for me, I just kept noticing it was like this like disruption that was happening in my nervous system where like I was wanting something from someone else, right? And it was like, I wanted somebody else to make me feel better because I was in my suffering. So with losing control, right? It's like, we never have control ever, right? And so it is that rapturous experience. It's like, for me, it's like, can I allow myself to be in the rapture, allow the spirit of life to move through me? Because it's actually, for me, it's not the actual fear of being in the rapture. It's the fear of how people are going to perceive me because of the previous incarnations of other, right, society persecuting us as women for being oracles, right, for being medicine women. And so maybe it's even a shift in vocabulary of like, okay, I'm not losing control. I'm actually like so centered and so in my body and so connected that this scares people who aren't, who don't have that deep connection and resonance within, who aren't in their power, who are so afraid of seeing someone else in their sovereignty and in their liberation. And I've been moving through that a lot. And I call it aloning together. Like you said, nobody can do the work for you. However, it is very real, this wound of women being visible and being seen and allowing the vastness and bigness of who they are. And for me, I teach embodiment. My body moves. My body makes sounds. My body can be very big. And I had a lot of fear around that for a long time. And it just took me being with myself, moving it on my own, and being in sacred sisterhood, being in plant medicine journeys, being honest, vulnerable. And over time, I began to allow that exposure, right? It's like, oh, I am safe. It doesn't matter how I'm perceived. This is the safest time to be alive on the planet, to be who I am, to serve in this way, to walk with an open heart. And it's that same titration. Okay, now I'm going to talk about this online. Okay, now I'm going to teach a workshop about this. Okay, now I'm going to share it publicly so that my parents might see it or whatever. And then eventually you're like, oh, wow, not everyone may understand me, but the people who are meant to be in my life are here, and it's helping people and it's working. People are receiving me. People are needing this. And so my invitation for those of you, right, who are like wanting to make the leap and wanting to be seen is like, it's so normal. It's so common. I move through it still. It's one of my deepest wounds. And there are people waiting for your medicine right now. And that, again, is going to overpower the fear of being seen, the fear of how people are going to receive you in your fullness and in your purity and in your power. But eventually, right, because they're projecting, because they're afraid and they don't want to look at themselves, eventually people are going to start to shift more and more. And people are going to be like, ooh, what's Shannon doing over there? She looks like she's having a lot of fun. She looks like she's in her power. She looks totally liberated. I think I kind of want to come over there. And then people start to come. And that feels like that's the vision I hold for the world. And I know it's possible.
It's so possible. I love how you framed that. Wow. There's so many beautiful nuggets that you're sharing. Yeah. In that piece of community, of witnessing, of, you know, allowing ourselves to be vulnerable and knowing we're not alone. You know, we are one. We are so original, so individual, but we are yet also so similar. You know, there's such a foundation of us as our messy humanness is.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, the way we are. And when we allow ourselves to shine or to cry or to just be in our truth, and show others how to do it, then, as you said, everyone can find their own way to their own truth.
Yeah.
in every moment.
Yeah, because there's unity and diversity too, right? And like with my clients, if there's somebody that's in an abandonment wound, it's like, right, we all know what abandonment feels like, right? So we may not have the same life experiences, but we all know what it feels like to be abandoned. We all know what it feels like to be rejected. We all know what it feels like to have that childhood wound. Like we all have the mother wound, the father, like we all know what that moment was, where it's like, ooh, that really hurt. And then it comes up again and again. And then over time, you just come from this place of neutrality of like, wow, we're all just mirrors for each other. So yeah, I love that you mentioned that diversity piece, because it feels, that feels very relevant and very important. Like we are all 7 billion fractals of the divine, which is what makes us one.
Yeah. And we're coming more and more to that understanding again, coming back to that knowledge of oneness. And really we need to be there, because we need to remember that our actions connect us to the planet and to each other, and, and to our children and their children and their children. So Lindsay, thank you so much for this beautiful time we've shared together. And I'm really excited to share that you have a masterclass as a free gift. So to all the viewers, you can just click on the link below and you'll be able to link up with Lindsay again. And I know she has some beautiful things on offer. Is there anything you'd like to share with us, Lindsay, that's upcoming for you?
Oh my goodness. Yes, I actually just relaunched my foundational 8-week program called Remembrance Journey of the Awakened Woman. And we're starting that on 8/8 on the Lionsgate portal. And it's a small group container. If you're interested in feeling again, we move through the whole map of consciousness, the emotional spectrum, to begin to leverage the body to reprogram the mind and some of the blocks that we have. And then on July 1st, my 9-month program called Rebirth is launching for the first time. And this is a hybrid group and private model where whatever you're looking to create, once you've cleared that density in the body and you're ready to, put your sacred service out into the world, write the book, launch the program, scale the business, we go through a 9-month journey together. So reach out if you have any questions about that. But the masterclass will give you a little taste of my teachings and my style, and I look forward to connecting.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Lindsay. And thank you everyone for joining us. And I look forward to seeing you again at Transformation in Your 40s and Beyond Women's Retreat. Take care, everybody.
Much love.
Much love.